It's a time when Parliament has decided not only on a technical piece of law, but also on how a liberal democracy treats the most vulnerable people at the end of their lives. The terminally ill adults' end-of-life bill suggests a very limited assisted dying system. And adults who've been diagnosed with a terminal illness and have less than 6 months to live could, with the consent of 2 doctors and an expert panel, legally ask for help to end their lives. That's the basic idea. The Lords passed the bill's second reading, and a select committee will now look at it again. And into that environment stepped Theresa May, Baroness Theresa May, once Prime Minister, now a peer, and she spoke with force and directness that perhaps public life has trained her to use. She described the bill as basically aided suicide, and that the way it is written into law might make suicide seem normal and send a harmful message about how valuable some lives can be, or how invaluable some lives can be. She noted that the projections weren't full, and that there was a chance, though very small, that legal help may be misused to hide medical mistakes or speed up deaths in ways that society would later regret. Those were the main things that she said. The response was quick and instructive. Theresa May's terminology, branding the proposal an assisted suicide bill or even a license to kill, was not merely partisan rhetoric. It was actively distressing to people with terminal illnesses and terminal diagnoses. Several terminally ill people and a number of peers have told the House that they are not suicidal. They want to live, but they wish to secure choice, safety and dignity in the face of inevitable death. Those testimonies underline that language in this debate is not abstract. It has human consequences. So what should we think about Theresa May's role, her contribution? I think there's 3 brief points of interpretation that can be made: descriptive, normative and practical. First, descriptively, Theresa May's intervention performed an important role in parliamentary scrutiny, parliamentary oversight. She brought to light dangers that need to be tested, such as the adequacy of protections, the potential of subtle forms of pressure on disabled or poor individuals, the procedures that would bind doctors, coroners and tribunals, and the NHS's ability to carry out strong oversight. And these are not trivial disagreements. They're kinds of problems that a select committee can and should look into in greater depth. And her doubt it should push peers to commit to more evidence, not less. The second issue is normative, and one needs to look at the moral grammar of Theresa May's discourse from a normative point of view. Equating assisted dying with suicide conflates 2 separate phenomena: the impulsive act of self-harm that public health aims to mitigate, and a deliberated request by a competent adult facing imminent death. The lived experience of terminally sick individuals indicates that they do not perceive themselves as suicidal in the conventional sense. Rather, they want to pursue control and relief within a structured framework, and May used a strong moral sense to frame the bill as an encouragement of suicide, but this made people who need to testify before the Lords feel like they're being pushed away. That costs us clarity and compassion in equal measure, and it's about perhaps a misuse of language by the former Prime Minister. Third, practicality. The political effect of her intervention must be acknowledged. Theresa May's stature as a former Prime Minister gives weight to sceptical arguments, and it draws public attention to the issues of safety and of language, of safeguarding and semantics. Her intervention has, some people would say, her intervention has helped create the compromise we now have, or at least it's the select committee to collect evidence and to test the bill's operational detail. That committee, with a deadline and a defined remit is exactly the institutional response a legislature should favour when stakes are high. It buys time for expert testimony, health service accounting and legal improvements without necessarily killing the bill or ensuring it. But there are cautions. First, the rhetorical heat of phrases like license to kill risks polarising debate. It's quite strong and it could make the argument more divided and make it harder to make careful changes. In a democracy, polarisation is hazardous as it undermines the precise and investigative scrutiny demanded by the bill. Second, worries about cover-ups and bad incentives should be dealt with through explicit procedural design, such as controlled monitoring, clear reporting requirements, robust clinical audit, and independent review, rather than by rhetorical veto. Third, the anxieties of disabled people and of clinicians must not be sidelined. Their fears are legitimate and must shape the committee's evidence gathering. So what should people and peers alike expect in the next few weeks? Well, first, strong proof from medical groups, psychiatrists, coroners and health experts, health economists. The Royal College of Psychiatrists and other professional groups have previously raised concerns about capacity and the role of psychiatry in evaluations, and these concerns need to be addressed. How an assisted dying service would be paid, managed and protected from misuse. Third, empathy in language means understanding that the dignity of dying people must be respected, together with the safety of vulnerable people. Theresa May's input was both helpful and harmful, salutary and problematic. It was salutary in that it reinvigorated scrutiny and compelled peers to consider hazards that a compressed timeline might otherwise have obscured. It was problematic because some of her language carried a bluntness that caused pain to people who have been explicit about the difference between seeking choice and wanting to die. And the proper response to that tension is not to silence either side, but to insist on disciplined parliamentary work, exacting evidence, precise amendment and humane rhetoric. The Select Committee is a tool for that activity. If Parliament performs its duty and calls ministers, physicians and activists to give evidence, and if the House uses that evidence to improve the bill instead of killing it, then both the dignity of the dying and the safety of the vulnerable are more likely to be protected. But I entirely agree. Her language was perhaps ill-judged, and but it has been efficacious in demanding greater scrutiny and ensuring that as the bill goes through the committee stage, important questions will be asked.